coaching practice, oh, it's being recorded. My life coach practice is called Click Your Heels Lifestyle Coaching. And I primarily help women who are ready to take steps in their lives to, maybe new relationships or career changes, or just trying to find what they desire in life. And it's a wonderful career. I love helping women.
Great. Thank you. And Bob? Welcome.
My name is Bob Scott, and I'm the president of Joseph Company Global. I've spent the last 30 years working with pro athletes, people in the geopolitical arena, arts and entertainers, and those in the business community that are all trying to find some balance between their spiritual lives and their careers, how the things of the spirit fit into their daily grind out there in the secular marketplace.
Great. Welcome. Great. Thank you for joining us. And I'm Sandy Archer, and I have Sandy Archer Spiritual Health, a life coach also, and I do Sandy Archer Consulting. I'm a consultant for social media and websites. But I'd like to introduce our guests tonight. And Bob, introduce them for us, please.
Well, I will. So I'd like to welcome to our show a colleague, a friend, my brother from another mother, Dr. Bgoni, who we will be referring to tonight as Dr. B. That's what his students call him. So we thought that it might be fascinating for our audience to see life through another set of eyes.
Yes.
As Americans, we sort of have a worldview that's our version of normal. So it's nice to see the same thing through a context of somebody from outside of our world. So, the last 3 months, our world has been filled with so much uncertainty. There's been fear to some extent, lots of confusion. Many of us are battling to keep our heads above water, trying to adapt to forces much more powerful than ourselves, right? And Dr. B is someone whose whole life has really been about adapting, adjusting, overcoming, battling to achieve and having to overcome some really, really difficult circumstances. So here he is. He's an educator with a PhD, and he's been on quite a journey.
Wow. So great. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you, Dr. B. So first thing, where are you from?
So basically, I am from Zimbabwe. I grew up in it. So when people think of, I always laugh when people ask me where you're from, and I say I'm from Africa. They think Africa is one country.
Ah.
And just to tell you a short story, I was in Mississippi getting lunch, and this lady asks me and says, "Your accent, it's different. Where are you from?" And I said I was from Wakanda. And she believed me.
Oh.
So she comes, she says, "Can I take a picture with you?" And I said, "Yes." I'm like, I'm one of the princes. So she takes a picture with me and she says, "When I get home, I've seen a movie about your people. You guys, you're very fascinating. So when I get home, I'm going to tell them that I made a prince from Wakanda."
Oh, no.
You could tell people around, we're trying to tell a woman, he's joking with you, but she didn't even see it.
Oh.
So I laugh. I'm from Zimbabwe, which is basically, if you look at the map of South Africa, it's at the bottom, just above South Africa. Okay. And if you were to drive, it's 18 hours from Johannesburg, which is the capital city of South Africa. If you had to fly, it's a 1-hour flight from Johannesburg to Harare. Yes, so that's where I'm from.
Okay, right. So, all right. Any questions, Suzanne?
No, I'm all ears. I'm ready. I'm ready to hear the story for sure.
He's got a fascinating story.
Yeah, we're whatever you want to share.
Well, I thought what we would do is we'd go back and context matters. So in order to kind of understand where he's going, one's got to understand where he came from. When he says he grew up in Zimbabwe, and then specifically the capital city of Harare, and in your neighborhood or your suburb was called
Highfield.
Highfields. So
Yeah.
explain a little bit about Highfields and growing up in Highfields, because I think, remember, here everybody, when they think of the burbs, they're thinking, well, that's the place where all the rich people go,
Uh,
So my full name is Muchengetwa, right? And my last name Bgoni. So Muchengetwa means to be kept.
Oh.
And my last name Bgoni means willingly.
oh,
So to just go back, so when I was born, my mom and dad, basically whenever they will get a child, they will name that child based on what is happening at the given time.
Ah.
So like my dad, when he was arrested as a political activist, my mom was expecting a child. So they named him basically a name that means I was the one who was set aside to be arrested. That's my brother's name.
Oh, wow.
So with me, the good thing about it was my dad had been sick and he had gone to see a doctor. And that doctor's name was Dr. Muchengetwa.
Ah.
So my dad told him and said, if my wife who's expecting gives birth to a son, I'm going to name him after you because I want him to help people like you do.
Oh, wow.
So hence the
Wow.
name Muchengetwa. So where I grew up in a place where poverty was galore. I mean, to be honest with you, it was bad. I mean, I remember, so my father passed away when I was 5 years old, leaving my mom with 8 kids.
Oh, wow.
And so we struggled to put food on the table. I remember, so when I say poor, I mean the poverty was bad. But we were able to survive because there was a bar that was close by. So here's the context. I'm 6 years old then, would go sell cigarettes. So a pack of cigarettes?
Yeah.
So most people in my neighborhood would not afford, those who smoke would not afford to buy the whole packet. So we would go buy the whole packet and sell a cigarette,
One
like
by
each
one.
cigarette on its own,
Wow.
and put a markup on that. And that's
Right.
what we would do after school. And we'll be there roughly maybe from 2 in the afternoon to 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And the bar was roughly about 3 to 4 kilometers away. So just imagine you are 6 years old, no shoes, and you're going around selling cigarettes because you know that money that you make is what you're going to bring home to help your mom get food on the table.
Oh, wow.
So the good thing that I like about my mom was that my mom basically herself, she tried to go to school, but her dad did not believe that a girl child should go to school. So she really wanted to be a nurse. She really did. So she said to us, my children, I know that I cannot give you the life that you want, but I understand that education is your key out of poverty. So she really encouraged us to go to school, to study hard. So the good thing was that our president then, Robert Mugabe, he was an educator. So he loved education like there's no tomorrow. That's why at this given moment, Zimbabwe's literacy level is one of the highest in Africa.
Huh.
So what he did was he built schools and built libraries all over the country. So he built a library in Highfields where I grew up. So what me and my 2 other brothers that are older than me would go to the library when it opens. We'll be there from 9 to 5 p.m. just studying every single day. And what made matters worse, my mom could not afford to pay school fees for us. And the fees wasn't much. Roughly, when I look back, I think it was equivalent to $20 US.
Oh,
But
wow.
my mom could not afford to pay school fees for us.
Right.
So at times a semester will go by and we'll be home and not having money to go to school. But by God's grace, I think most people think that we used juju because we're so intelligent. My siblings, we were very, very intelligent. But it's because we studied hard and we worked hard. And one thing I can tell you about is that like where I grew up, when I look at where I've come from and look at where I am right now, there are so many people who could want to be in my shoes today. They will give everything in their power to be in my shoes, to be where I am today. So I don't consider myself lucky. I really count on God's blessing and say, you know what, God helped me to take me from there for me to be where I am today. trust me, there are times we'll go 2 to 3 days without food. I remember one time my mom was crying. All she could do was boil salt water for us to take before we could go to bed.
Wow.
And to put things in perspective, so my mom passed away 2009, right? So I go back for my mom's funeral. And so if you look at me right now, I go up there and everyone is calling me fat. And I'm like, what? I'm like, guys, if I take it to America, they don't think I'm fat.
Wow.
But to put, like what was so touching was that. So I was buying food for the funeral because people will come to the work and they'll stay there for 3 days. I was buying bread. There's a guy that I grew up with who was as intelligent as me. He comes to me and says, dude, thank you so much for buying bread for us. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I've not had bread in 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I've not had bread in 6 months. So this is a way for us to test bread, And I looked at that and I was like, wow. So I'm truly, truly grateful. Even though there's so much poverty, one thing that I love about growing up in Highfield is that your neighbors are there for one another. So if, say, my mom doesn't have anything, she could go to her neighbor and say, hey, can I have a cup of flour? And they'll give you.
Mm-hmm.
Then someone will say, hey, can I have a cup of sugar? And they'll give you. So that's how we shared. To the extent that right now, when I go home, trust me, I can safely say I know people 10 blocks either way, in all directions. I know the families, I know who lives there. I know the parents, I know the children, I know the grandkids. So in the end, it helped us grow as together, even though we're poor.
Community.
And so I'm really grateful to God for that.
So how many meals a day did you eat?
Today?
No, then.
Maybe one. And to be honest, even up to today, I still struggle to eat more than 3 meals a day. I'm so much used to eating one meal that I normally eat just one meal. Like even today, I think I haven't eaten anything. I think I'll eat dinner when I get home. So
what kind of food? I mean, what kind of foods did you have?
So we have what we call sadza. It's like cornmeal mash and everything. Trust me, like that staple meal, everyone loves it, and everyone is always looking for it. And
it's like a thicker version of grits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you still make that here at all?
Yeah.
Oh my God. If you want to see Africans go crazy, just invite them over for sadza. That's like,
No, but so the part is there's some things that I used to eat home that I used to love, but I tried them now because I've been so Americanized. I struggle.
Yeah.
Like I killed a lamb almost 2 weeks ago, and I tried to cook the head, and I tried to eat it. Oh no, it didn't taste good.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So how old were you when you came over here?
I came here when I was 26 years old. So what had happened was, like, growing up, so one thing most people don't understand is that America is a brand in itself.
Okay.
So even in Africa, I would laugh during the Olympics, right? It will be all teams, China, USA, UK, Russia. Guess what most of us were cheering for? We'll cheer for the USA to get more medals than any other team.
Oh.
And
why's that?
The funny thing is, because we grew up watching the soap opera in the 1980s, Dallas. And so much so that, like, there's got all those flyovers, like, those roads that have got, like, flyovers. We call them flyovers.
Yeah.
Overpasses.
Yeah. So
Overpasses.
trust
Okay.
me, we all grew up wanting to go to Dallas to see that.
Wow.
You don't want to sit in that traffic. What are you talking about?
Yeah, now that I've driven in Dallas, I understand.
No.
It's something that we all aspire to be. 1 and 2, WWE, which was WWF.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No. That's the depiction you got? Oh, great.
People believe that to be real. So much so that, like, whenever I might do a show on Saturdays, the streets will be empty. So you have to understand. So not everyone has a TV. Trust me, like, even me growing up, we didn't have a TV in our house.
Right.
but our neighbor down the street had the television. So would know the TV program and say the A team is coming next 2 hours. So we have to go take a shower in the bath because we didn't want to go there, looking dirty. And then you go and you watch the A team, and then WWE.
A team, the A team.
Yes.
Mr. T, I love Mr. T.
So in Africa, soccer's kind of the thing, right? That's the big sport there.
Right. Football. Is it called football there?
When World Cup comes on, right? If you're in the poor neighborhoods and you have a TV, you put the TV outside, right? And you put it up on a stand, and then you just have thousands of people all sitting out in the street watching World Cup soccer, right? Because it's the thing that I discovered about Africa that is really precious is there's a communalness, there's a connectedness. Here in the States, because of our culture and the way job creation happened and people, families scattered. In Africa, because people are poor, they're very codependent on each other. They've got to share resources to survive. So if somebody has a car, well, they don't just take one person in the town, they take the whole neighborhood. Like you got Africans in the trunk. I mean, it's just insane. If you've got a television, the whole neighborhood's there.
Oh, that's I grew up in an apartment building kind of like that, so I understand that mentality.
Yeah. So the school system was that like you would go grade 1 to 7, and then you do what we call Form 1 to Form 4. Then you pass. So if you pass your Form 4, then you go to what we call, it was like the post high school, pre-college, which is called A-level, Form 5 and 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So for you to be able to pass even Form 4, so what happens, like this modern school system is what we call a bottleneck system. So let's say like by the time you finish Form 4, which is like grade 11 here, close, grade 11 or 12, somewhere there, there will be, let's say 250,000 students. But at that time, only 50 to 60,000 students could go to the post-secondary education.
Oh, wow.
So just imagine, so those who don't qualify to be in the 50,000, now they're stuck. They don't even know where to go. They go out to go look for employment.
What was the qualification? I mean, what is just grades or?
Yeah, grades. It's called
GPA.
It's based on how many A's and B's you get. A, B's, those are your passing grades. So then you have to compete with other students. So depending on what is the pass rate at that time, you can qualify to go further. And then at the end of your post-secondary school, at that time, but right now things have gotten better. There were only like 2 universities, and those universities could only take 3,000 students. That's it.
Oh, wow.
So you have to understand that. So the only way you could be able to go to university is either you're very intelligent, or your parents had money to go to bribe their way in.
Because again, remember the context here. In African culture, the only way out of poverty is one of 2 things. Either you're a criminal, or you can get a college education. That's your only way out of the ghetto, as we would say here.
Yes.
So the competition to get into those, 3,000 or 4,000 positions is just intense. And you've got rich families and politicians and everybody trying to game the system. So if you don't come from one of those elite families, I mean, you have to be really good.
Yes. So, but I'm grateful to God in that. The good thing with me is that I came to know Christ at the age of 15. That's what changed my life. And it changed my whole family. So my mother was a spirit medium and a witch doctor. So when I see you on TV or spirit medium, I laugh at that. I'm like, no, that's fake. My mom was the real deal. Like my mom, so in our culture, we believe that we can communicate to ancestors, and they have to have a medium through whom they speak through. So my mom was the one for our whole family. And so I was also training to be her understudy so that I would take over if she was to die. So whenever all this will happen, I'll be sitting next to her. So what happens is you play this traditional music, and then the spirits will manifest themselves in my mom. So one of them was supposed to be of my grandpa, and my mom had like a sweet small voice, but when that spirit came, it would exactly sound like a deep male voice, like
Oh, wow.
with no, like you're like, oh my goodness, that's a man speaking. So we did that for so many years, and I kid you not, my mom would have dreams at night, and then she would know about people coming to seek help before they even get there.
Right.
So when we're in the village, she would have trance where she'll just wake up in the middle of the night, and I would follow her, and she'll go in the bush, and she'll touch maybe a tree, and I would tie like a piece of cloth on it. Then the following morning, she would come and say, okay, what happened last night? Then I would explain. Then she would go and take those, whatever it is, maybe it'll be a branch, at times it'll be a root, at times it'll be the leaves, and she would know that there are patients coming, maybe with different ailments, and she'll use those to actually heal those people.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, there's a guy who was my cousin who was a cat thief. She would do like charms and give it to him. Trust me, that guy, even though the police will catch him, he will come out scot-free each single time.
Huh.
That's how much power my mom had. If you wanted to go for a job interview, she'll give you all those charms, you go get the job.
Wow.
If you're looking for a woman and you don't know how to get ladies, she'll give you charms to go get any woman that you want. That's how powerful my mom was. So what happened was, when I was 15, my sister, who is 2 years younger than me, came to know the Lord. And so she wanted to go to church, but since we grew up in the ghetto and it's kind of dangerous, she asked me to walk her to church, and it was at night. And I was like, okay, I'll walk you halfway. And I did. As you're walking, there was an electricity blackout. So maybe you guys don't understand, but in Zim and even most parts of Africa, electricity goes, there's like what electricity shedding, where basically they're saying, okay, we're gonna give electricity to this suburb. So let's say in Kansas City, it'll be maybe North Kansas City will have electricity for the next 3 hours. And then East won't have electricity at all. So there was an electricity blackout at that time. And I knew that my sister, for her to go to church by herself, is going to be dangerous. So I walked with her to church. And I go in, I sit down, and this guy is preaching. There's candles, you know, and he's preaching. And it's as if he's preaching about my life. And at that time, what had happened, just to give you a background, because my mom struggled to pay school fees for us. My older brother had just gotten a job then. I think I was in what you call Form 2. And he had given me money to go pay school fees. But because I grew up in the ghetto, I lost all that money in gambling. I was trying to gamble the money.
Oh, no.
Yes, I lost it
Oh,
all.
no.
I knew that if my brother found out that I had done that, he was going to kill me. So I was so angry, and I'd seen my mom suffer because of poverty. I really wanted to kill myself. I'm glad that when I went to church, the guy was preaching you may think that killing yourself is the answer. So I was mad. I thought my sister had told the preacher about me, but it was like, how does he know all those things about my life? You know, and I went and gave my life to Christ. And I kid you not, my life, I can tell you, my life changed then. I remember even waking up the following morning, it was as if like the sun was shining so bright. I remember I didn't have a Bible. I had to borrow a Bible. My friend gave me a Bible that was missing almost half of Genesis and half of Revelations. I read that Bible, trust me, from cover to cover. And I love that Bible so much that even the people that in my neighborhood, because I had a nickname, my nickname was Bouncer. That was my nickname. So they knew me to be like, you know, one of those hard-hearted guys who basically was very stubborn. They didn't think that, they thought maybe I'm going to church because there's a girl, but it changed me. And here's what is the coolest part. I didn't have shoes, I didn't have clothes. I was wearing a blouse and a t-shirt my mom gave me. That's all I had. So there's this friend of mine, a guy, he's in Texas right now. He's a pastor. He was basically, when I came to Christ, he mentored me. He was about to come to USA right now to go to Bible school at that time. And he took me to his house and gave me basically his whole wardrobe. And I remember taking him home. But my good thing about me is I was very as tall as my two older brothers. So when I came home with all those clothes, it touched my mom so much that she's like, wow, where did you get those clothes? And I told her, oh, a brother in Christ gave it to me. She's like, wow. And that's what turned my mom to Christ.
Ah.
You know, so it changed my life. And when I look back from then to where I am now, I can simply tell you that is the most significant thing that ever happened to me. And I'm grateful to God for that.
Mm.
Yes. Amen.
Yes.
Thank you. Wow. That's an awesome testimony.
Yes.
Yay.
He's 15
Awesome.
years old before he has his first pair of shoes.
15.
Yeah, so
Yes.
15 years old, and
So
it's a life-changing experience. But you grow up, and you're kind of a kid preacher, and
Yeah.
I was going to say, is that what you did? Yeah. I was going to ask you, what was your goal after that? Yeah.
So here's the trick part, right? So I go to church, and my pastor is always saying, you need to find your gift, your calling upon your life. I was scared of talking in front of people, that I went and joined the church choir. And I got kicked out the first day. The choir master came to me and said, my brother, we love you. But you're a brother, but you've got no soul. even up to now, trust me, my daughter, that's almost 20, she can play instruments, she can sing. Me, I can't sing, I can't dance. So I felt the call to preach. So the school that I was going to, I had these friends of mine. We went to the principal and said, the principal, would you allow us to preach to the whole school? The principal said, that has never been done, but we will give you the chance to preach to the whole school. But we wanted, when you do it, you must do it in English. That is the requirement. And I said, okay. We said, okay. So for that to happen, so here's what happened. We had read in the book of Acts how they cast lots, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what we'd done is we said, okay, who's going to go talk to the principal? So we'd cast lots, and I picked the smallest stick, so I went in. So when I came out, I said, guys, I'm done. It's now there's 5 of us. So I said, the 4 of you now, you have to cast lots on who's going to preach. I did my part. And they said, no. You still have to be part of the lots. And they did. And they came to me. So I was the one who was supposed to preach that day. And one of my friends said to me, he's like, dude, I know this is scary, but I'm going to come and stand next to you. And I'll read the word of whatever you want to share. I'll be the one standing next to you so that you don't get too nervous. Trust me, I fasted, I think maybe because I was too nervous to preach. And so I remember the day comes and I've never done it. So I go stand in front of our school. That time, I mean, mostly maybe about almost 5,000 to 6,000 students. And I go and I stand. So instead of saying, can you read from John 3, verse 16, because I was too nervous, I said, can you read from John 16, verse 3? So my friend opens the Bible and begins to read. And as he's reading, I realize he's reading from the note from the verse that I wanted to. But I ended up preaching from that verse. And I was nervous. But at the end of the day, I remember I felt this calmness come on me. And I can safely assure you, I felt God. And I felt God speak that even as my lips were opening, I couldn't even believe it. And I'm grateful to God for that. In that, with the guys that we were with, I can safely say there is more than 20 of them that grew up from that group that are in ministry.
Wow. How old were you then?
I was 15. I was 15 years old.
Oh, you were still 15. Oh, wow.
Yes.
You quickly.
Yeah. So from then trust me, even up to today, if you go to my high school, they still preach. The students are allowed to preach every day during assembly because of that. So that's how I became to preach.
So Zimbabwe, just for people to kind of get a grasp of it, is predominantly divided between a tribe in the north and a tribe in the south. And there's 2 major cities, Harare in the north, where he's from, And then in the south is the city called Bulawayo. And Bulawayo was like a major industrial hub. That's where all the railroads went through. But you ended up in Bulawayo. How did that happen?
Yeah, so what happened was I got a job working for DHL.
Okay.
And so I was working in Harare. And what had happened, I had a sister of mine who was in Bulawayo, which is the second capital city. And so what happened was I really wanted to lead her to the Lord. That was my aim. I tried several times and she always said no. So she has 8 kids. So one day, my boss, whom I'm still good friends with, he's in South Africa right now, he's like a brother to me, comes to me and says, hey, there's been a mass resignation of people at our Bulawayo branch. You have always wanted to go, so can you leave this weekend and go run that branch? And I said, oh yeah. So I basically got on a train with my wife and we went and stayed with friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was married and we...
Yeah, you got to explain who the wife was.
Oh, yes.
This is a really intense part of his story. So
Yeah,
you need to back up and explain who
Okay. Back up.
Back up and explain. So I was married to a lady, basically her name was Vivian, and she passed away 6 months before I came.
Well, no, so you're in Harare, you meet Viv.
Yes,
right?
Viv.
You fall in love, but where's Viv from?
She's from Bulawayo.
She's from Bulawayo. So what he does, this is really fascinating because you've got these 2 tribes, right, in Zimbabwe. And these 2 tribes have been at conflict with each other for 150 years.
Yes.
And so in the same way that we struggle with racism here, in Africa, they still struggle with tribalism. Well, what Mooch does is marries a girl from the other tribe.
Oh.
Right? Which at the time was a bit controversial.
Yes, and there's a reason to that. So my father, when he was a politician, there were 2 major political parties. One that was Shona, which is me, and one that was Ndebele, which is the one in the south.
Right.
My dad, who was Shona, was the right-hand man to the guy who was the leader for the other, like the one in the south.
In Bulawayo,
Bulawayo, called ZAPU. So my dad was a ZAPU cadre, a ZAPU political member. So
to a guy named Joshua Nkomo. So Joshua Nkomo and Robert Mugabe were like the 2 revolutionary guys, but one was in the south and one in the north. So he's comes from this, and he's this. And the reason this is important is just because the way God orders our steps, right?
Yes.
And so he's got a really unique story because instead of being segregated into a single worldview of a single tribe, he's ended up with a life that's actually cross-tribal,
yes,
which plays itself out in his marriage.
Yes, so we moved to Bulawayo.
In what year?
2001. And I could not speak Ndebele, which is the language from there. But within 6 months, I was fluent in it.
Oh, wow.
God just gave me the gift, and I started even preaching in Ndebele, even though there's some words that I cannot pronounce because they use the clicking sound.
No,
like
do it.
One is.
Can you do it?
I'll try.
Okay.
If my Ndebele friends are listening right now, I love you. I'm gonna butcher this. Forgive me. It's utkak utkak. That's a fruit that tastes like sugar, so it's called utkak utkak. So when my Ndebele friends hear this, they will know that I'm not Ndebele. Because my clicking is not as deep as they do it.
Right.
So, but the good thing was that when I was there, that's when I had a dream that changed my life.
Okay.
So I moved to Bulawayo. Everything is good. We planted a church, and things are good. I'm getting invitations to preach all over the city, and I'm enjoying it. So one day I have a dream. In this dream, I dreamed that I'm being called to go into full-time ministry and leave my job. So you have to understand, in Africa, things are okay for you if you've got a mega church. But if you're a pastor with no church, it's hard to put food on the table because most people don't have much. So in this dream, I dreamed that there is a group of pastors and they're saying to me, God is calling you to ministry. And I'm like, I'm preaching, I'm planning churches even right now with my job. So why do I need to be into full-time ministry? And in the dream, they say to me, God has called you. You need, so this is the dream, right? You need to go in the next room. In that room, you see a lady in a red dress. She'll tell you what to do. So I go in there and there's a lady, and the lady says to me, God wants you to go to America, to Bible school, and says, this is the name of the Bible school you need to go to. It's called Ozark Christian College. It's in Joplin, Missouri.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ozark doesn't sound English. I'm like, if God had said Dallas Theological College, I would have said it's God because I know Dallas. You know. So I'm like, so I begin to argue with the lady. I'm like, but how will I get there? I don't even have money to get there. How will I even pay school fees? And the lady says, when God calls you, God will take care of you. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I wake up and I tell my wife, and she's like, oh, when you get to work, you should check and see if it really exists. So I get to work, I forget about it. Then during lunchtime, I'm like, oh, let me check. Thank God there was internet then. And I Google, and the thing comes up. I was like as white as can be, even though I'm dark brown right now. It shocked me to the core that I went home. And I was like, I couldn't work. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, guess what? The thing exists. And she says to me, why don't you apply? So I applied. And I told the people, listen to me, God wants me there. So whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, I'm going to be one of your students. So I don't know how God is going to do it, but God is going to make a way. And God did make a way through a friend of mine, a friend of ours, mutual friend,
right,
called Mike Town. He really played a big role in helping me come here.
But before you get here, you have a collision, a tragic collision at high speed, I guess we'll call it that way. So you and Viv start having children. So Nyasha's born.
Nyasha is born in 2000, and then 2003, I applied to come here. And we basically I'm in the process of applying, but you have to apply, you have to get visas and all that. So my wife Vivian was expecting our second child. And so the day gets for her to go give birth, but she's got high blood pressure issues. And she passes away, and my daughter lives. And this is like in March of 2003, about almost 6 months before I'm supposed to come.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
So that broke my heart. And trust me, at that time I was like, God, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay and take care of my kids. But my mother-in-law then and my mom and my whole family sat down with me and said, hey, you know what? We know that God wants you to go. You leave your children here with us. We'll take care of them. And you go do what God has called you to do. So I come.
But it's hard though, because you're conflicted, right? Yeah, because on the one hand, he's got this terrible tragedy. He just lost the love of his life. You know what I mean? And he's hurting. Yeah. And at the same time, there's this opportunity that ever since you were a little boy, you always wanted to come to America. And so you're coming here conflicted. Like, this is like the best thing that ever happened to me and the worst thing that ever happened to me at the same time. So it's and I think, people that have gone through tragedy can relate to that. That's sometimes good and evil, light and dark, all these diametric things are happening at the same time. And it's a hard thing to navigate.
Yes. And I remember I weighed 164 pounds when I came.
Oh, wow.
And I only had, I think, 2 pairs of pants and 3 shirts. That's all that was in my suitcase. And my friend Mike, when he picks me up at the airport in Kansas City, he takes me to Walmart. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm looking at this. I'm like, you have more than 3 brands of everything?
Yeah.
And not only that, you've got one store that's got, groceries,
everything,
clothing, car stuff. I was like, pharmaceutical, I was just like in awe.
So you thought that was the shopping center for all of America,
yes,
right? Like everybody came to that one store in Joplin because it's so big.
No, it was here in Kansas City.
Oh, in Kansas City.
Oh, Kansas City.
Airport, it took me to a Walmart here in Kansas City. So I thought in the whole state of Missouri, that Walmart was the only Walmart in the whole state of Missouri.
Until you drove down the road.
No, wait. I go to college and my roommate, Matt Steadley, says to me one day, hey, do you want to go to Walmart? And I'm like, dude, I'm maybe from Africa, but Walmart is 2.5 hours away because I've been to Walmart. It's in Kansas City. He says to me, so from our college in Joplin, there were 3 Walmarts within 5-mile radius.
Oh, wow.
So he took me to all the 3. Trust me, up to today, I love Walmart that so much so that when I was doing my MBA, when I was doing my breaks, I'll go to Walmart and just walk around. And I remember I used to see these 3 people every time I'm in Walmart. One day I asked them, I'm like, you guys, every time I'm here, I always see you. They were in security.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
They're like, we have seen you come in odd hours. At times you just walk around and don't buy anything. We're wondering if you're stealing anything, but we've seen that you just come and you walk around and you leave.
Oh, you can imagine. I mean, here's this kid who's 15 years old before he ever had shoes,
Right.
Walking into a Walmart. I mean, you talk about extremes. It's like, what the heck is this? You know what I mean? It's like almost sensory overload. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Then you have to make choices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
Africa, you know, it's like I remember first time I went to the grocery store, and this was back in the 80s, and I went to get cornflakes, and there was a white box with black letters that said cornflakes. That was the only choice.
Right.
That was it. You got cornflakes, or cornflakes. You didn't have to worry about choosing. You know, you go to a Walmart, and we have a whole aisle
Yeah.
of just cereal. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
insane, you know? So
Yeah.
it's good to hear his story because it puts things into
Absolutely.
perspective. You know what I mean? It's like we live in a world of such unbelievable abundance.
Privilege.
And I think probably for a guy like you, when you hear Americans complain,
No. To me, it's upset. But when I used to work in the dish room, and with some fellow Africans, so we would see that someone would just come and put food on the plate and only eat a little bit and throw away. I remember you see tears on our faces because we know so many people back home who, if they could just get this, they'll be so grateful. I remember the first time I went out to eat, we go out to eat, and my plate comes, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, so is that all for me? And they're like, yeah.
somebody put a cow on my plate.
I'm like, no. This is for 2 or 3 people. And they're like, no. That's all. That's what you ordered. You know. So I think at times we underestimate how much we have. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's like here we walk to the faucet, right, to turn on the water, and what's our expectation?
Yeah.
There's
Turns
water
on.
coming out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife is living in Bulawayo now, and 5 out of 7 days they have no water.
Wow.
Right? We expect that we go turn on a light switch and the light goes on, and if it doesn't, we're sort of stunned by that. Well, in Africa, if the light goes on, we're all like, "Whoa!
Yeah, so happy.
We have power!" You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
wow.
like it's the context is so completely different. So one of the things that we struggle with in our cross-cultural world is when you come here, you know, the sense of entitlement, the expectation, the you know, how people don't really understand that they always hear about the 1%, right? You always hear this phrase, well, the 1%, the wealthy 1%. And in our culture, that 1% is the Zuckerbergs and the Trumps or whoever, these people up there. What people don't realize is our whole country, middle class and above, is the 1% of the whole world.
Right.
There's over a billion people, maybe I think it's 2 billion, that live on $2 a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
About 30,000 people die of hunger on a daily basis.
Wow.
More than 800 million people go to bed hungry with no food on a daily basis. So it's something that I think at times, I always say this not to make us as Americans feel guilty. No. I'm not saying this to guilt us. I'm just saying I think at times we need to count our blessing and appreciate what God has done for us. 1 and 2, to understand when other people in other countries are saying, hey, you know, why is it that everyone wants to come to America? You just think they just do. Trust me, people have nothing. So at times they just know that, like, trust me, me being here, I have helped so many people back home. He knows it, because I know that there are people who don't have food.
Right.
So
So $50
yeah, $50
could feed hundreds of people.
hundreds of people.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
made it sure that like when I came, I would send my mom money, and I would send extra for her to buy food to feed other people in my neighborhood, because I knew that there are people who are in the same situation that I was, who don't have food, who are going to bed hungry, and I don't want to enjoy life here and have them suffer. So even the little that I can send.
Yeah.
So how long have you been here now?
18 years.
Okay. And so what do you do now? What is your...
So I'm a professor.
Okay.
And I'm trying to start a business actually here in Kansas City. That's my plan. And
So you you got an MBA in psychology.
I've got 3 MBAs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so one in psychology, one in international development and poverty alleviation, and another one in non-profit management. So you have to understand the reason is that, like I told you, my mom always said school, 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 school. Like, if I had my way, I would do as many degrees as possible. But the reason is that, I've realized the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when I did my PhD, it opened my mind so much that I realized, my goodness, things work in the West. Because why? Because when you have steps, you've got principles that you come up with, you've got theories that you come up with. You say, okay, we've tried this. So if you want to do A, B, C, if you want to get to this area, you have to do A, B, C, D. I learned that, and I was like, you know what? This is something that I could go back to my country and try to change, because I've realized that the Africa that I want, I may not live to see it.
Right.
But if I am able to go and put policies in place right now to help, future generations, so that they start learning things like, ethics, leadership, even at a very low level, open up the school system, not to where it's just a bottleneck, but teach people to be entrepreneurs. Focus on agriculture, focus on things that help open up the economy, teach people that, it's not all about nepotism, it's not about who you know, but basically if you work hard and you put effort in wanting to do something, you can actually achieve your dream.
Right.
So that is really my passion, really, is one day to go back. And if you ask him, my own brother ended up being the CFO of the New Zealand Stock Exchange.
Oh, wow.
Who is 2 years older than me. Yes.
Wow.
He was the
amazing.
The number 2 in charge of New Zealand Stock Exchange. And now he's back home in Zimbabwe as the CEO of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
Oh, that's great.
So that's what I'm saying. I look at life, and I'm grateful that my mom instilled in us the discipline to really go after education.
And education.
But also that God in his infinite wisdom, came behind us, blessed us, opened doors for us that men in Africa desire to be open, and they don't get. And I'm here today, and hopefully with this man, we hope to go back to Zimbabwe, eventually, and make a change and make a difference. Just one life at a time. That is the goal.
So why don't we give people just a little bird's eye view of Zimbabwe at the moment, because it's a country that's really in turmoil, eh?
Yes.
So it's, just to give you a background, there was a colonial government that ran the country all the way up until 1980, and it was called Rhodesia. Then it became Zimbabwe. And then for 40 years, one guy ruled the country. And then a couple of years ago, there was a military coup.
Right.
And people were kind of excited because the guy that had run the country for 40 years had kind of run it into the ground, and they thought they were being liberated, only to realize that the guys that took over were basically the guys that had kept the other guy in power. So the country's continued to deteriorate economically. So the poverty situation is just grown a whole lot worse.
Unemployment is around 96%.
Oh,
yeah, it's bad.
So people survive on what we in the diaspora send back home. So that's what most people survive on. And then the informal sector, basically where people are selling like what they used to do, sell eggs, sell fruits and vegetables. That's how they're surviving.
And so they're vendors on the street. So what he's talking about is that the way that most people survive is they've got to sell something, right? And so, and 70% of the country still lives in the rural areas. They still live in the classic round-of-all huts with the grass roots, and there's, you know, they don't have plumbing and electricity and all, but it's very agrarian. And what they'll do is they'll send somebody into the city, you know what I mean, with things that they can grow to hopefully make money and that kind of, so the whole, he's calling it the informal sector, meaning it's people that aren't employed at a job. And that's, you know, what, 90, would you say 90?
Number 96%.
96%.
Wow.
And now we've got this COVID thing going on, right? So the country's restless. The people are very unhappy with the government. There's a lot of talk about wanting change. And so the government's scared right now. So what they did is they used this whole pandemic thing to tell everybody they had to stay at home. Well, think about this. 96% of these people, the only way that they can make a living is to come into the city and sell stuff on the side of the street. And for the last, what, 30 days has it been now? Or 6 weeks? Yeah, they can't do it. The military keeps everything shut down. So we've got people that are starving. You know, there's aid situations there that, I mean, so, you know, we have a not-for-profit called Compassionate Justice International. And if there's anybody out there that kind of wants to help us feed people, we can put up, you know, where you can send us a check or whatever. But it's that kind of thing where you can't fathom how much a little bit goes.
Right.
I mean, what $50, what we could do with just $50 is crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely will share this.
It's a life and death situation right now. There are a lot, you know, then you have a situation like last week, there was a whole bunch of people in the city of Bulawayo that died because of the fact the water was bad. So, you know what I mean? Because of the infrastructure is falling apart. So you get cholera. You know, you get these intestinal things. So these poor people are just getting hit every which way, you know. So one of the things that's, you know, that's a real passion for us, and what we kind of, when we think about Jesus, we think about Jesus in the context of being a friend to sinners, a friend of the poor, a friend of the disenfranchised, to the oppressed, you know what I mean? And we're in a situation here right now where we're dealing with all kinds of issues about oppression.
Right.
But when we're talking about Zimbabwe, we're at another whole level of oppression. You know, people here are fighting over getting their feelings hurt. In Africa, people are trying to survive. They're trying to live. There are mothers who literally will not eat so that their children can get food. It's really that intense.
Yeah, like the stories that I hear from people that I grew up with in my neighborhood, it's very sad, you know, because like they'll come to my sister and say, hey, can you ask him to send me $20? Sad part is people don't have an idea. They think once you're in America, like I had that perspective too, that when you go to America, you have a tree that drops money and you are rich. So they just think that we have money, you know, but I tell them, like, you know, at times it's not as easy. But it's more blessed, however, when you give, even from the little that we have, to help, you know, and it's really a blessing. That's why I'm grateful to God for it, because I said to myself, there are so many people that could be in my shoes, but God chose me. Why? Are
you preaching now, or?
I
preach here and there when I get invited. So the hardest part, like I never understood why God wanted me to go to that Bible school that I went to until one day. So maybe I know almost out of time.
No, that's okay. The basic police won't get us.
But so like I told you, so we grew up watching TBN, right?
Yes.
So all of us, we want to be these mega preachers, have so much money, have designer suits, private jet, number one, private jet number two,
Fake hair, fake hair.
It's
Don't forget the
basically,
fake hair.
if you want to put this in context, it's J.R. Ewing in the ministry, right? Because it's Dallas, right?
Dallas and Jim.
Right?
Yeah, we
Only
won't say it.
It's the ministry side, right?
Oh my gosh.
And preach the gospel, right?
Oh wow. Wow.
So I remember one day I'm walking to the library and the school president is in front of me. So I ran to go open the door for him. And he says, no, let me do it for you. So I paused. And the good part is the motto of the school is be there to serve, not to be served. And that was the verse on the glass. It hit me hard because I grew up from a very hierarchical society where someone is older in power, you basically bow to them. And it was then that I heard the small voice of God says, son, I've called you to save others, not yourself. And I realized quickly, I'm like, oh, wow. So the desire to have this big, massive church just went, psh, and I realized, you know what? I'm here to help my people, feed them physically, spiritually, just be there for them to make a change, to help as many people as possible. And I took that as my calling from then on. And that's how I met this guy. And I said, you know what, hopefully that's what you want to do. Exactly. Just go back home to Zim. Despite what politics is going on, we don't care about that. But the idea is to just go in communities and make a difference. Go in communities, make a difference. One community at a time. And build from there. So
what is your perspective on what's going on here? I mean, what's your perspective?
It's said in that, like said part is I've experienced racism here in America, but also the other part is not everyone is a racist, and not every cop is a bad cop. All right, there are cops that have been so good to me. Like I remember one time when I had a flat tire, and this cop pulled over and helped me. That I even said to him, I'm like, dude, when you pulled over, I was shaking and nervous. And he's like, why? And I said, trust me, because maybe we all have not had good experience with cops. So I think the hard part that we need to understand is I think as community, we need to have community dialogue where I hear you and you hear me. And we come up with solutions on our own. Because I think the mistake we're making is we are waiting for politicians to solve these issues for us. Nope. Yeah. Trust me, when we bend things in the street and we beat up one another, Trump and them all, they're eating, steak and all that. They're going to bed sleeping well. They're fine. But it's things that are affecting us. I think if we as communities will come together and have community dialogue, bring the police in, sit down and we talk about things and we hear each other out, we will be able to come up with our own solutions on what needs to be done. Rather than to wait for all these politicians to do things for us. That takes time.
One of the
so how do we do that? Right.
Well, one of the things I think where he's going with this is here's one of the things that's fascinating. When you grow up white in America, black is might as well be in Africa. Like it's the cultural difference in our world, but it's perception. We have this perception, right? Because of that dark skin color and those people with this way of living life, that they're like in another universe, right? They might live in America, but they're a completely different community, right? What happens in dialogue when we get together and we start talking is what we end up discovering is we're really not that different.
No.
It's a perception. Our lack of interaction, our lack of integrating, our lack of going to church together. It's like Sunday's the most segregated day of the year. Everybody goes to their little ethnic, place. And so it's more interaction, more conversation, making efforts to actually cross over and get to know each other more, because in that simple place of communication, you realize, you know what? We all want the same things. We have all the same emotions and the same feelings, same fears and anxieties.
So how do we get there? What
do we do? Like I see someone asking, is that not been tried? Yes, it's been tried, but we keep trying. I think if all communities begin to open up, it starts with one community at a time, right? Like there was in Zimbabwe after independence, there was a group of white people that went and lived in the village and opened up what was called what?
The community of
Community
reconciliation.
of reconciliation. They started somewhere, and when they did, it basically surprised everybody. So I'm just saying, I think we just need to find a way to start somewhere, bit by bit, even though it may have been tried. But I believe that as human beings, as we open up, even churches, where we need to have this dialogue in church and say, okay, guys, this is something that is affecting our community. What do we need to do? You know, where we begin to love one another like brothers in Christ, just like really brothers in Christ, you know, as children of God, as we begin to shine the light through love, you know, I believe that's how we can make a difference, because love always wins. You know, Christ, they crucified him. Yeah. But guess what? How many years later, his gospel is being preached where? Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Why? Because of love. And I think that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
Dr. B, I had questions to ask you, and I think everything that I was going to ask you, you answered. I mean, I see where you've come from. I see where you draw your strength, and it's just incredible to have this enlightenment. Gosh, thank you so much. I would love to talk to you more.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we definitely, you know, and I see, you know, yeah. How do we do this? Okay. How do we do this? Starting in community. I'm a solution person, so I want to know. Okay.
You know what Mike and I did?
Let's just do
Mike,
it.
Mike Jones and I did, you know, which Mooch was a part of it. Here's what here's the statistic. Nearly 3/4 of white America has no cross-cultural friends. They have no black friends. They just don't. It's just so some of racism, some of the things we're dealing with is just ignorance. Yeah. Like there's a lot of ignorance. There's just, we don't really integrate, right? So what we did is we just got a bunch of people together and hung out in the backyard around, you know, a fireplace, and we just talked. And I know that sounds really simple, and it's just one little, you know, neighborhood thing. But if that happened, all over the place, you know, I think what he's talking about is so often we try to come up with a program. It's like, let's form another institution. Let's make another law. Let's get another, you know, top down kind of thing. And we're going to force the whole society down this road. And we keep coming back to the same thing. Well, the reason we keep coming back to the same problem is because what he's talking about, we don't love one another. We don't actually know how to be friends. You know, it's when you bring things back to that level, you know, I have this saying, you can't drive a 10-ton truck over a 1-ton bridge, right? What I mean by that is you can't carry weighty things over flimsy relationships. So how do you solve the problem? You build better bridges.
Right.
We don't have good bridges. We don't have hardly any bridges. You know what I mean? We have lots of meetings. We have legislation. You know what I mean? We keep going down that road. So we have a lot of fun, and we kind of hope that, you know, more things like that will happen, because you just get hanging, and pretty soon it just, you know, all that.
So you think it should be done organically versus versus formal?
Because it's about it's about doing life together. You know, like like with Bob, right? We've gone through the good, the bad, and the ugly together. So for him to call me my brother, it's not just he's just saying it for the sake of saying it.
Right.
He knows my weaknesses. I know his weaknesses. He knows my life. I know his life. Right. So we have done life together. So there's so many people that I've done life with that to me, when they see me, they don't see black, they see their brother. Right. So I think that's what we need to come to and try to and strive to. And like you said, I think the other part is most Americans have not traveled outside even their state. And I think that's at times that's what affects things that are going on. And I think I've talked, as more people have traveled and seen other cultures, their minds open up more. They are more understanding of
Mhm.
diversity. They are more understanding of differences.
Yeah.
Yes, there may be a system that is there that people are saying, but I'm just saying, at the core, at the root level, we need, as people, we need to be there for one another. We need to love one another. We need to
Right.
find ways to bridge the gap, build the
That's
gap
right.
between us, and make things better.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I just hope that we can find a way to facilitate that, because if what Bob says with percentage wise, 75% don't have Black friends, how do you make them? Where do you find to do that? You know?
Well, like we did, we have friends who have Black friends. So we invited our Black friends with our white friends, and we all got to,
Right.
you know, and he's developed whole new friendships. I've developed new friendships, you know. It's so funny how it works. It's just, you know, it's the old adage, you multiply, and then once it hits, or you add, and then once it hits critical mass, it starts multiplying. But we just got to get better at relationships. I mean, honestly.
We just got to get better at loving each other
Exactly.
Mhm.
and
Some
not
of
being
it's really simple.
offended about everything.
But
you
the
know?
only way that happens is you just got to sit and hang and,
Right.
you know, and do what
Yeah.
we did. And I know
Right.
other people that have been doing the same thing. I've been hearing
Yeah.
things all over the country from
Yeah.
friends and colleagues who basically, and, you know, I think he started out with this early on in the conversation. We just got to be better listeners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? First thing we as the dominant race have to do is go, I don't know. Tell me. And listen. Tell me your journey. Tell me your story. What don't I know? What do I need to know? You know, what are the things that I'm missing?
I love hearing people's
Which
stories.
is humility, right? It's just basic fundamental humility.
Right.
You know, like you said earlier, learning what you don't know, you know, I think that's, you know, so it takes effort, you know, it takes investment, it takes intentionality. Like you have to make a plan.
Right.
That's a
Right.
famous saying in Zimbabwe, right? We got to make a
Well,
plan.
I definitely want our Awakenings Within to be a community of that, and us trying to do that. And definitely, you know, Bob, post, you know, the your links to where people can help, you know, the people over in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And also, you know, maybe we can come up with, you know, just like event to hang out at Shawnee Mission Park all
Yeah.
together, something like that. Like you
Yeah.
said, nothing formal, but something informal.
Yes.
You know, it has to start somewhere. I want to do something, but what, you know, you go, what do I do? I'm not sure.
Well, just look at this, right? Life on earth is how many years? 80 years if you live, 120, right? The most. But eternity, we're gonna be together.
That's right.
So just imagine, like, the things that we hold to be true, we hold highly here.
Yes.
At the end of the day, they won't hold value. When you die, you become earth, you, me, all of us. So it doesn't matter.
Well, when we're all one spirit. Yeah.
Yes. So our perspective has to be like that of Christ.
When we're all one spirit.
Yes. Are we going to be like Christ-like? That is what all of us should have. As long as we have that, we're good. Let's be like Christ. Let us be like Christ.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that is the goal.
Yes, and have some gratitude. And
yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. B. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I was gonna play a video, but you know, I don't want to take the steam out of this, so I'm not going to. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight at Awakenings Within. We're gonna have more dialogue later, and maybe you'll come back again, Dr. B. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
everybody.
God bless you.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night, you guys. Have a
too.
great positive. Reach out to people this week.
Exactly.
Reach out to people.
Somebody that doesn't look like you.
Yes, reach out to people and let us know what you did and how that went.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.